Okay, here we go, I think. Welcome to the Foresight Scrolls channel. Here we examine charts and trade setups based on the Foresight Suite for TradingView Indicators. We take a look at indices, stocks, cryptos, and commodities. If you want me to take a look at something specific, just drop it in the chat. And if you're unfamiliar with the suite and the indicator functions, you can watch the demo video on our channel or visit the website, foresightscrolls.com. Okay, since it's our first time and just getting our feet wet here, we're going to check out 4 things tonight. My plan is that we check out things Monday through Thursday, probably around the same time. I'm thinking about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. In that time, but that may vary and may change. We will get into something regular soon. So the first thing we're going to take a look at tonight is the S&P 500 with the Foresight Suite. And as a part of the Foresight Suite, we currently have 4 indicators that are working together all at the same time. Right, those are the echoes of time, the flow of time, Foresight, and the mystic spell. I'm keeping the echoes of time off for now because it's something we just use from time to time. But you can see here it's sort of a support system. It's a calculation of previous price action to determine support. And we keep that off unless I just want to look at it, to see where supports might land if I need those. But primarily, our trend that we've developed here is the purple wave, the thing we call the wave of eons, is our primary support that we use for trading. And then we have all of our what we call premonitions or omens here. These are these purple labels. We get those. We can get those either real time intra-bar, which TradingView doesn't do natively, just meaning they don't send alerts in real time natively on watch list. They can do that for single signals, just not a watch list. And we're scanning entire watch lists to get these signals and be able to provide those for people that have the indicators through our Discord. And so you can see here with the S&P 500, back since when was this? Back in April, when we had this 20% correction, it's climbed and got above our trend. And you can see here by our trend, it's gotten support on it the entire way up. And so one of the things that's really clear about this chart, even though this is such an unnatural move with no real big correction, this is very hard to explain as far as markets go, but it's due for a correction in my view, and I think in most people's view, it's due for a correction, some sort of a pullback, 10%, 15%. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But you can see here, just based on our indicators, we got our Genesis signal here, and that's just a candle close on the upper side of this blue line. We got that signal here. That's a long signal for us. We get a candle close, and especially second candle confirmation. That's a pretty strong signal for us. You can see in other places here we get these sort of bull and bear traps, but once we resolve those traps, then the Genesis signal it's pretty strong, and so is the Oblivion for that case, or for that matter. What is the date today? Today is September the 29th in 2025. So right now in the S&P 500, we can still see that we're above the wave. We are getting some signal clusters, which happen right before we sell off. This indicator is fairly surgical with the indices. I mean, it's pretty straightforward with most of the indices. So we get shorts and longs play out great with Foresight. You can see you could have shorted this and then longed it off the trend, shorted it, longed it off the trend. Shorting here, you probably would have gotten stopped out a couple times, but here we short again, long off the trend, here again, long off the trend. We're really looking to see what happens in the next week or so, given that our mystic spell, our short signal down here is printed. So we're just sort of waiting to see how this plays out. Now, these are Heikin-Ashi candles. which we highly recommend. One of the biggest things about the indicators is that we wanted them to be simple. We wanted them to be easy to understand and be powerful. And like I said earlier, be surgical. One of the things that's really worthy of note, and we like to be really honest and transparent about just the ability of the indicators and to be reasonable about what to expect. But something that's really, really cool here that I just can't, we don't want to cherry pick things to show you just to make the indicator seem like it's always perfectly functioning and it's some sort of a, just get rich quick thing. It's like everything else. It's an indicator which has really been dialed in to be quite powerful. And the way that we do that is we focused on ways to cut out the noise so that you can clearly see when longs and shorts are available to you. And so with the flow of time, these Genesis and Oblivion crosses, you really see those. And there's sort of a collection of things happening up here at the top of this was in late February, early March, when this had exhausted itself, much like we're seeing here now with this long run. We did get a signal print here, which is it's shorted down into the resistance of the wave, but then just sort of marched sideways. And we did this really peculiar thing where it marches sideways, and we got three of these short signals in a row, which you can see just by the indicator that doesn't happen. It oscillates fairly regularly from top to bottom here. So it prints 3 times in a row, and then we have this confluence signal. So normally you'll see these as one white triangle show up. Here you're seeing two show up. And that just means there's extra confluence. There's some other things happening here besides our indicators that are showing up in confluence with our own short signal. And so we printed that right here, which is it's just incredible. I mean, this is the very top, the very tippy top of the market. So we get this shorting signal, and so we short this at the very top of the market. And then we get this confirmation by the Oblivion signal as well. And then this pull down, which is really incredible. And then we do this thing where we, at some point we bounce, and look what happens here. We bounce right into our trend, and it rejects it. And this is like a sort of a drawdown. This is 20% drawdown. And by the way, back during that time, the whispers and then eventually the news was coming out that President Trump was talking about tariffs, and that was during this time. And then this candle right here, this doji candle right here, is the day that he had the public announcement, and that fell that extra, probably I guess like 12. What is that? 14%. So as far as the narrative goes, there is that that the announcement of the tariff struck fear into the market, and that there's some partial truth to that. But I find this to be very, very interesting that we called this based on signals, and then it bounced right into the meat of our downward wave, which is resistance, by the way. Once you're under the blue line, this wave is resistance. It bounces right into that with exquisite timing and then dumps out. And that's just hard to ignore. So again, I don't want to just cherry pick something to show you how powerful it is, but I can't not show you that because it's just incredible. And maybe less so about the indicators themselves, but more so about how price action is moving and is far less dependent upon the news stories that are out there. Although they seem to really correlate. It's almost as if someone knew this was going to happen prior. So that's just it for right now with the S&P 500. This is, if you're unfamiliar, the SPY is just an indice that tracks the S&P 500. and you can buy and sell that on Robinhood, other platforms as well. And so we're just going to watch this over the next few days because we could just be in a little retest of the top and then maybe force some rollover. But there are some other trend line patterns in here too that this is sort of respecting. This thing has been in sort of a wedge for a while. All right, so that's it for the S&P 500. And then let's check out Amazon. This is the Amazon stock. Sorry, let me close this watch list over here. There's a watch list here. There we go. And so collapse this so we can see this more clearly. How far back was this? So this was same. This is really funny. The same deal here. This is the collapse, that 20% collapse that we saw. And look at what we notice Amazon does. So we get a short signal here at the very top. We have an omen here, premonition as we like to call them, a short signal here. We notice short. Now, you probably take profits, honestly, down into this wave. But once we close this oblivion, then it's a clear down signal for us, or a shorting signal, I might say. And you can see how we did the very same thing. Bounced into our wave, we short this, and we're back down. We get a double bottom down here. We're thinking of developing a divergent system for our mystic spells, but there's some caveats to trying to make this into a divergence. But we get a clear double bottom here, and that gets us back above the trend line. And then again, we're shorting our signal into the trend line, and you can long the trend line, short the signal into the trend line. It's pretty straightforward. We see here we sort of get into you get this big sell-off candle, and it prints in oblivion, and it actually confirms. And so we would have gone short with a stop right there and just gotten stopped out and hit this Genesis signal again. So you're just sort of getting this chop through here, which is fine. That's going to happen. Back into our signal, we short it back down into the trend line. And again, you can see how straightforward this is. And we're not paying much attention down here to the mystic spell indicator. But if we were to follow these out, we get this signal as the very first time that it's recognized intra-bar, we get it. So depending on what the symbol is, might just short that right away. You can certainly wait for a bar close and still have some room down right there. I don't know what that would be, a couple of percent. So you can still get that. So where we are now with Amazon. So in real time, we see a couple of things happening here. We're definitely below our trend line, and it looks like it's trying to roll over here. My guess is we're going to make an attempt to retest it, and it looks like it won't be long here before we get a long spell or a signal to long based on the mystic spell. I would say, there are some things. If there's potentially a government shutdown, which there's potentially a government shutdown every year when they have to do their budget. So it's always fear-mongering that the government's going to shut down. But in case that it did, even for a day, I would expect a sell-off in the market. So that could be a scenario where we get some sort of a print and then we still sell off. I still have the echoes of time on here, and so you can see here we got support here. My guess is that if there was some sort of a sell-off, maybe a retrace and a sell-off, we hit here for a temporary bounce. I mean, maybe, but it wouldn't surprise me if we got like a little bounce and then down to the next one before we turned around again. And if this isn't making if you're not seeing the pattern here, this is a very simple pattern here. We're getting the bounce on one of these supports and then bouncing most likely back into our line. It wouldn't surprise me if we actually get a premonition there too, and that's good confluence. So you may get a premonition here for a long. You may get a long signal from the mystic spell from a long into support back into our our wave. So if that isn't clear, then it's something that you can just take a moment now to look at. We've designed the indicators to be simple, robust, powerful, and to work together. This was a development that came out of all of those common struggles that people have trying to trade. So we wanted to take those things that people struggle with the most and figure out a way to limit those while trading, but still having the most robust system that we could possibly make. And so that's what we have here. So let's go on and check out. So we got an indice, a stock, and for tonight we're going to do those two things and a couple of cryptos, and maybe tomorrow we'll do gold or oil or something like that. So let's look at Bitcoin now. Bitcoin on the daily. So we can see. This is a good one. So you see here we got this double triangle again, and look how powerful this is. We get it. We get the also cross on the Genesis confirmation. You don't need that Genesis confirmation to play that, and it's not always going to be this powerful, but you can see from the time of entry to the top. There we go. To the top, you're almost 18. You're at 20%, if you technically take the second top, but profits would have been taken before that. At least on our end, whatever you do is up to you. This is just education after all on how to use the indicators. And let's see next. So real time, what do we have? Real time, we're seeing some sideways chop in here. We've seen this really big uptrend, and now we're in some sort of consolidation here. Now currently we looks like we just had a candle. No, we haven't had a candle close above our blue line here yet. And so we're waiting on that for tomorrow, and that should be a Genesis cross if it closes, and then we would want to look for a confirmation candle on it. Now, you don't have to. You can certainly, on the cross take it. Maybe this is a good opportunity, a good opportunity to see how we can also drop down to the 4 hour. And what you're going to notice here when this loads, you're going to notice an extra line here, and this is what we call the present, and then the thick blue line, which is on our daily chart, is the epoch. So the epoch is the line that's it's like our what has the most gravity. It's constantly trying to pull price back to it. And so what we can see here with the now line, as we like to call it, is that when you get a close above the now line, you are flipping bullish, like on the 4 hour here, or any time frame, any higher time frame than the daily. And so right now it closed above it. You've even got a confirmation, and we've seen here, if you're playing the 4 hour, it's you could have just taken profits there at the epoch, 2% profit. So if you're trading, that's a good that's a good profit on a trade, to be honest. I mean, you can shoot for the 5, 10, 15%, if that's your thing. But you certainly don't have to begin to make profit and help those wins start to compound. And that's the thing that a lot of people just don't have the patience for. And I think that's something else that the indicator suite helps you with is patience. One of the big problems is emotional trading. So you either feel impatient, or you have FOMO, or you revenge trade, so on and so forth. And the indicator just tells you when and where higher quality trades are available. So you know that you don't take a trade right here, right in this area. It wouldn't make any sense to do so. I mean, by none of the indicators would tell you that. So you're not into the sport of the lines. You haven't had any sort of an omen or premonition signal. Our purple labels here. By the way, I will show you this one thing. You can see we have 6 different types of omens here. So you don't have to leave all of these on. If, for instance, you found on a particular symbol that let's see, that this that this one performed better, you could just play that one. But you certainly don't have to. You can have all of them on at the same time. But sometimes we do on particular symbols, particular assets, just play, certain types. And that's something that you can figure out. You can see here we're getting close to a rollover, although we can stay elevated here for a while before we start getting our short signals down here. Currently, though, on the daily, we can see the 4-hour closed above the epoch. So sometimes if you have some sort of confluence of long signals, or you see the trend flipping, you can take the entry off the 4-hour and know your stop is below the 4-hour. The epoch, but looking at the 4-hour chart. And here's another little trick. I don't even think I covered this in the tutorial video that you can view on the channel. Is when the trend flips, it's clear that you can see here that we're going from this deep purple into this lighter purple. And you can tell here when it flips back into the deep purple, it's normally a really strong sign that when our 4-hour or our epoch, for that matter, when you're on the daily, when this 4-hour crosses underneath, that the trend is flipping. Now, what happens a lot of times is that you will get a retest of the trend when this flips. So let's see, this one did do that, but it was just so flat through here. It's really hard to see. Let's see if we can find one. Yeah, something like this. So you can see trend flips right here. It's just sort of flat price action. But when we get under it here, it sort of tells you, hey, there's probably going to be a retest happening. And so sure enough, we get a signal to short, and it comes down to retest. It's just trying to make sure that the trend will hold price. The trend will hold price, and it confirms it. It bounces off of it. We get a new signal, and it comes down. And it actually gets under price here, but you can see it struggles. It gets back above. It tests it again because we've been below it. It tests it again, and then off to the race. It's coming up here now. We're just bouncing up and up and up off the trend. So that's it for Bitcoin. Let's check it back out of the dailies. There's a couple of really strong candles so far, but we'll see how that one ends up tomorrow. And if for some reason this continued to roll over, we would not get a long signal there, because these are only printing. You can see here, when we print this, we mean it. It's going to go up. When we print this, we mean it. It's going to go up. When we print this, we mean it. It's going to go up. When we print this, we mean it. It went up right there. That one wasn't everything, but we printed on this candle. These are Heikin-Ashi, so it's hard to tell exactly where it printed without switching to regular candles, but I don't want to do that for this particular stream. If and when people start watching and want to see those things, we can certainly switch over and look at regular candles, but just to keep it simple, we'll just leave it at that for now. So the last thing for tonight will be Solana. We're going to take a look at Solana. We see something very similar happening here. We're still on the 4-hour. Let's go back out to the daily real quick so we can see. Yeah, so what's happening right here is that Solana has been in this uptrend, riding our wave up. And I think you can see here, it's pretty clear that this trend indicator is strong. I mean, it's strong. Now, there are particular symbols that, have not as much liquidity that this thing just whips around on, but that would be true for anything that didn't have a lot of liquidity. By the way, our signals in the Discord are like the stock ones and the crypto ones. We're mostly sending higher liquidity signals because we want those to be the strongest things possible for you. And it's not that we couldn't use it on something that has low liquidity. You certainly can. But again, we're just trying to keep everything simple, straightforward, highest odds of success. You can see here that we have printed an oblivion signal, and it is now coming back and trying to retest. We haven't, the epoch hasn't quite crossed over yet. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of days, but it's certainly an opportunity to short there. You are close, I would imagine, to this rolling over. Now, again, this doesn't it doesn't have to immediately roll over. It can just stay flat for a while. And while this is staying flat, if we retested, if we shorted there, price can come down. So it doesn't, we don't rush ahead. There's no reason to rush ahead because it's not actually a signal for us until we get the label print. And again, the label print is happening intra-bar. It's really the fastest signal that you can probably get. And again, in the settings for these, you can set it to wait for candle close. By the way, this is something that I didn't mention in the tutorial video as well, and I plan on re-recording that for this one simple reason. In the settings, we have pre-built in to the input under settings connectivity to send JSON payloads to 3 commas. And so that's the particular way we can scan an entire watch list intra-bar and send signals intra-bar. If you had to imagine making alerts for every stock in the S&P 500, we don't have to do that. We make one alert for an entire watch list that scans intra-bar, and TradingView doesn't do that natively. So it's a very powerful option that we have to do. And you don't have to do that, but I know some people out there trading leverage, and you just want to maybe be looking at one symbol or a few symbols when you're doing that. And you can use it there as well. By the way, as a part of our Discord, one of the things we do is we make these tiers of crypto specifically because all cryptos don't behave the same. So we make it a focus of, if you are in fact leverage trading, you having some sort of method to have a formula to tell you which symbols should require what sort of leverage and what sort of what percentage of your capital that's safer to use, if that makes sense. So I think we could take a look at the 4 hours just so we're checking it out. Just based on our indicators here, we have gotten the present line cross. So from a 4 hour perspective, we have flip trend, and look what we've got here. We've got our first omen on this side, which should, I mean, that's to say can, and should is a strong word, get some sort of a little pullback here to test to make sure this trend is going to be strong. By the way, this is such an important bit of transparency, but an important thing to understand about the suite of indicators. A lot of folks out there have indicators, just, free ones and free ones and free ones that go on forever. And all of them have signals that look awesome and then signals that are garbage. And so you can see right here, we are getting signals, but this now again, there are some bearish bars in here, no doubt. But since we've got it on Heiken Ashi, we're on averages, and you can see that the averages on almost all of these candles are bullish. And so as our signals are popping up here, what we understand is we need to be paying attention to our trend, because when price is falling, more people are buying as price falls to make money going up. Less people are selling into a trend. So if you have somebody that bought down here and this trend has flipped, they're not selling until they see something happening near the top where they know that the ride is over, and or they've seen it come down and violate some sort of a trend line that they've got put on it. So it's not so much that these are bad signals here. It's just that when we flip trend, we know that these signals do not carry weight. Not until we've had some sort of a big run. It's one of the reasons why we have confluence with the mystic spell at the bottom, because if you notice the mystic spell, we print a shorting signal here, and immediately, I don't know if you can see this clearly, but it's the same as our trend up here. When we're bullish, we're dark purple, and when we're bearish, we're light purple. It has this short indicator here. I mean, this short label here, and then immediately we flip back purple. So we don't even turn down, and so we're sort of watching this stay purple, and we know we've been on this long up run. It hasn't even retested the trend, so we know it's getting way overdone. And then we just get the one of our more powerful signals here. We get the shorting signal here. We can see we get a little bit of a sell-off, and if you've been trading for long enough, you know that it's very, very common that when price is ready to break down, it has one last grasp for air, and that's what we see right here. It just sort of pops back up. And if you follow, like if you use RSI, I'm not going to look at it tonight, but I would not be surprised if we saw that there was RSI divergence here, and then we get that pull down. And you can tell, I don't know how far down that is. It's like roughly, it's like 7.5% roughly that we get. We go up here. If you know technical analysis, you know that that is a double top. Boom, boom. You hit it twice. So now what you've got is extra confluence. You've seen it hit once. You've seen it hit twice. Now it's hit twice and giving you a short signal. And that's sort of all she wrote, because it brings it back down into the trend. It just tries and tries and tries, and it never can break the present moment. And when you see, with Heiken Ashi candles especially shows you this, anytime that you get this rounding of price action candles, that's a clear sign it's about to move in that direction. And so where does it come to? I mean, it really is a great piece of work, a great piece of engineering that these indicators are working so well together. We see it come right down and just bounce, and it's just waiting, and then crack. We get the oblivion signal. You see on this candle, it tries to touch it one last time. It's just sort of over. I mean, we get we got a little label print here. We got a little bounce, trailing stop on that, or a tight stop on that, or taking a little bit of profit there. You can even make a little bit of money there. It doesn't make it up to our trend line, and it just sort of rolls over again, and then down here to where we finally get a bounce, and then back into the trend. And one last thing, we could look and see. Yep. So we turn on the echoes of time and see, we not only do we get a label here, sort of a premonition for a bounce, but we also see it go into our support. And most people draw supports at pivot highs and pivot lows, which are really natural. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But you can see here, ours is sort of drawn a little differently. I wish this price action mapped it out a little clearer to make my point. But most people would put a pivot low here, maybe, and then one down here, and then one down here, which is fine. But ours, like I said, isn't doing that. It's doing some calculations and some math to determine its support by price action and not by pivot point of highs and lows. All right, well, awesome. I hope if anyone ends up watching this thing that you've gotten interested. And if you are looking to check us out a little more thoroughly, you can go to ForesightScrolls.com, because I think you'll enjoy what you find there too. A part of our whole shtick is to build these really robust indicators, but we've developed something else that goes along with that. There's a bit of narrative and a bit of lore and story that goes along with the whole thing that you could find there. If nothing else, you could just read about it. All right, thanks so much for checking out Foresight Scrolls, the Foresight Suite for TradingView indicators, and we will catch up next time. Thanks.